Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to this webinar about analytics by Unifaun. And the people here in the room today is me, Johan Hellman, and by my side I have Per Larsson. Hello, Pelle.
Hello there.
I don't know if it's a beautiful morning in Stockholm, but it's a morning anyway. Not too bad, not raining. I think fall is coming, right? Okay, so before we get started about analytics, I want to introduce ourselves a little bit. I'll show you a nice picture so you know what we look like. So I said my name is Johan Hellman, and my role here at Unifaun is to be product manager, which basically means that I try to set out the roadmap for our development work and to make sure we develop our products, specifically our TMS product, in the right way so that we can deliver the most possible value to our customers. I also spend quite a lot of time meeting customers to understand the pain points and the needs, and also to make sure that the customers that choose to implement our system also get the most possible value out of it. And Pelle by my side is product owner, so that means Pelle is working much closer to the development teams, basically feeding them with things to do and making sure that they deliver the right things the right things.
Yeah.
And also I think one key part of being product owner is to be able to answer to the teams on all the different type of questions that they might have about the customer and the needs. So also Pelle is quite deeply involved in how we are using the product.
Yeah, when I started out my career in implementation, Johan Hellman was actually a customer to us. So even though he probably doesn't remember it in detail, we had quite a lot of interaction in the beginning.
Now you tell me.
Yeah, I
hope it was a good memory.
No, well, there's a reason I'm telling it now. So.
Okay, if you have any questions, there is a feature here in the webinar platform to ask questions, and we will answer those at the end. So in the upper right corner, you should have some sort of expandable little panel where you can type a question, and hopefully we will be able to see them and also give you a decent answer. And also, of course, if you have any other questions after the webinar, you're always welcome to contact us. sales@unifaun.com is a good point of contact. We will get those emails. If you already have a contact person within Unifaun, you can, of course, also use that person for your questions. Okay, let's get started.
Yep. So this is my favorite image. If you've seen other webinars or if you're a colleague of mine, you've seen this quite a lot of times. This is a good way to map a supply chain to needs. And so you visualize the supply chain, and then you can, for instance, today we're talking about strategic roles. What strategic roles needs BI, but you may as well use it when you've identified improvements with a BI tool. You can use this same map to actually look at the more operational roles. What kind of tools do you need to give different operational roles to implement improvements? So if you don't have this map of your own supply chain, a tip from me is to just create a map like this, and it's much easier to visualize and discuss around improvements. So it's also interesting from a TMS point of view, because this is where TMS is supposed to create value. And if you look at analytics in specific, what it does, well, it identifies improvements. And most importantly, we should ask ourselves, where in the supply chain does analytics create improvements? Because this is one of the key selling arguments that I try to talk about when I talk about analytics, because this is where where a software as a service system like Unifaun TMS really shines. I've been working with customers quite a long time, and I've been involved in many business intelligence initiatives. And the general conclusions is that it's pretty expensive. If you do it on your own, you got a license cost for whatever BI tool you use. You have development cost, you have hosting cost, and you have maintenance costs. And on top of that, in order to get the project or the product developed and up and running, you have to allocate resources from your IT and set up a project team and from other parts of your organization. And as a result, most BI initiatives are focused on supporting high-level roles like global logistic managers or global sourcing managers, someone with a high-level strategic responsibility. But the good thing, the cool thing with analytics and the way that we have a license model with the Qlik is that the analytics license model and the plug and play product, you can have a cheap war proven BI solution that is ready to use anywhere within the supply chain within 24 hours. That's a pretty cool thing with this product. We move on. This is also something that comes over and over again in our presentations, and it's the what should I say, the key process that we believe this is the fundament of the Unifaun TMS. There are other solutions out there that go more for a big bang theory, if you will. We believe in constantly improving. You implement something, you get control, you get a visualization and understanding of your current state, and then you continuously improve. So with analytics, for instance, if you have your shipments in the Unifaun TMS, you can get an overview, you can identify improvements, and then you can use one or many of the tools in the Unifaun TMS leverage modules, and you can start to implement improvements in your operation. And you can also use analytics to follow up that it actually has been implemented. And when you're done with that, you can identify next area of improvement, and then it goes on and on. This is the key with the Unifaun TMS. This is what we strive for.
So we really believe in starting maybe with a limited scope, but getting proof of the concept, getting some value out, and then gradually implementing more or capturing a wider scope, but also continuously working with better and better improvements, because then you know it works and you know that you get some value out. The approach of sort of building a big spaceship first, and then hopefully it will work when you launch the rocket. Yeah. I think that's much higher risk. So
we want something that's cheap and has a more or less instant return of investment. So, and when you have one implementation, one site implemented, and you actually have proof that it saves money or saves time or does what it's supposed to do, then you can roll it out to several more nodes, and then you can start to connect and create a supply chain solution. But you don't have to start big bang. You could do it gradually. That's the basic idea. Yeah, and I said this earlier. There is a good quote that I use a lot. It's quality is value to some person that matters. And in this case, when we built analytics, we looked at two key roles that we frequently supported with the BI initiatives, and it was the logistic manager and the sourcing manager. And the logistic manager is often they want something, they want to know, well, they have a task of improving the logistics operation in general, and we look at transportation specifically. They're interested in the flows and patterns of shipments, maybe follow up suppliers if they perform, or if carriers perform according to agreements. Then you have the sourcing manager that is, well, responsible for the sourcing. And it's not only that you want a good baseline, but when you got your tenders, you want to secure and follow up the implementation and the compliance after the tender is done. And I get asked a lot, why didn't we build it for the transportation manager? The simple answer is that unfortunately most companies don't have dedicated transportation managers. So these are the two key roles that we were looking to support. Okay, what is analytics? Well, it's a business intelligence tool. You will see it in the demo, so I'm not going to go too much into it, but it allows you to twist and turn and drill down in your data and analyze it in a graphical user interface. And what it is for us, what analytics is, what I would like to highlight is that it's a software as a service solution, which basically means that everything is in the cloud. You don't have to install anything at all. It uses data from the Unifaun TMS, and we use Qlik Sense, which well, according to me, I've been working with this quite some while. I think it's the best tool out there, especially if you want to have a good drill down function and you want to have a good BI tool. I think it's hands down the best BI tool on the market. So we build it around that, and then regarding the cost, which is the key selling argument for a TMS system in general, thing is that we pay license fee to be an OEM partner with Qlik. So we pay the license fee, we host your data, we host the Qlik Sense server, and you don't have to install anything. You don't have to have any license with the Qlik Sense or Qlik, and you can use this as part of the multi-tenant SaaS. And it's also important to stress that we have ready-to-use plug-and-play products. So currently we have the Analytics Enterprise, Analytics Invoice, and the Analytics Delivery, and that's what Johan is going to demo for you in just a moment. And you can, if you are a customer or if you want to have a demo or anything, if you're a customer, you can activate the trial. You can use the actual product for 1 month for free and try it out. And if you want to order it, you can do it instantly, and it will be available within 24 hours. And this usually happens if you use analytics, the plug and play products for a while, we also have the possibility to build the custom analytics custom versions of it. Though we highly recommend that you use the standardized versions first to get the general feel of how your data quality and to really get to know what is the most valuable next step for you. So with that said, I think we'll jump into the demo. I'll hand it over to Johan.
Okay, thank you. Hopefully you're really curious now. So this is what it looks like when you're in Unifaun TMS. This is a demo account, and I will go to the analytics. This is a link. We go directly into the analytics hub. So you see here is the Qlik Sense application hosted by us and accessible with user rights directly from the Unifaun TMS application. Pelle mentioned the 3 apps here, and I will start with one we call Enterprise, which is usually the starting point for TMS customer. All of these apps are structured with several different sheets that basically each app has its own data model. And then the sheets are different types of pre-made graphs and views and charts and so on based on this data model. So starting with the enterprise app, it's built around consignments or shipments. So the data in this app is on a consignment level. When we say consignment, we mean a shipment from A to B at a specific point in time. You can see here it's 415,000 shipments, data from 2 years. And then you can see some other stats around them in terms of status, how many carriers, which modes, and also the from and to points. You can also see some reference points here in terms of growth or in this case, a slight decline comparing year to year and month to month. And basically everywhere in the application, if you click somewhere, you make a selection. That's how it works. So now I selected Norway. I can select a specific city in Norway, and you can see I'm building up my different filters here. And I can also easily adjust what I've selected, and I can even twist it around and select maybe the opposite from what I just took. And whenever I do a selection, all the different graphs, as you can see, are then updated with the selected data set. So if I go, also when I go between the sheets, the selections will stay. So I can select based on what's available to use as a filter on one sheet, and then I can easily move between the different sheets with my selection. I can also undo my selection and clear it all completely. There is also, of course, the costs are in here, given that you have transport cost calculation active and you have your tariffs in Unifaun TMS. You will see the price, you will see it by the currency of the tariff. So here you see the shipment that have a euro price, 215,000 shipments worth 47 million euros, for example. This was the dashboard. I will click to the right to navigate to the next sheet. So if you can also see all the sheets here. So now I'm at the flow sheet. And this is really a sheet that is designed with the logistics manager or somebody with a general transport management responsibility in mind to see quickly what the flows look like in terms of to and from, volumes over time, the shipment profile, and more detailed trends in the shipments. So you can also here select and drill down, for example, Sweden, and you will see the cities of Sweden. You can also, in the same way, select the to destination. As this is now demo data, you can see that we have blanked out a lot of the details. So instead of having just from city here in a real application, you would see, of course, all your cities that are in the data set. One scenario that you could use this for is maybe if you have a new site that you are ramping up. So let's say I'm starting business in Helsingborg, and let's say it happened back in 2017. I would be able to follow month by month, or if I want even week by week, how the ramp up is going, and also which transport services, for example, I'm using, starting to use at this site. I mean, that could be interesting when you start a new site. It could be interesting when you implement Unifaun TMS for the first time. And obviously also very interesting if you decide to change your carrier, to really monitoring that the change is happening as you're expecting. As you can see, I can quickly change here also what is shown on the different axes of the graphs. It's quite dynamic in that sense. Another use case here is if I want to analyze, for example, my courier shipments. Typically, they are quite expensive. And especially expensive if they are heavy. So let's say I want to identify shipments over 500 kilos with the courier service. I have here 453 shipments, not so many, but I would say this is quite a lot of money being spent. And maybe it's actually more efficient to use air freight for this type of shipments. So if I come to the conclusion that I would actually prefer to have air freight, I can identify which shipments. I can see which site I have. So that things like this, I can see that it's in Norway we have the issue, could even identify which user has been making these shipments. And I always have the option to go to a sheet that we call details, where you will be able to see and extract consignment level data. You see here. So these are the 49 consignments that are now selected. Here you can also see the price. This is actually 20,000 euros worth of shipments. Only 42 shipments, 49 shipments. If I want this into Excel, I right-click, choose Export Data, and then I'm able to download, and it will open up automatically in Excel format. This is something I can do with all the sheets in the apps. So it's really easy to take out data for further use for other purposes. There's one last thing I want to show on the flow sheet. So I'll go back and clear my filters. Now I have everything again, and I will use bookmark instead, call it switch. And I have some preset selections here, and I will change this back to carrier. And I can see this would be a scenario where I'm actually changing one carrier to the other, and I want to make sure that the old one is being ramped down and the new one is being ramped up. Again, I can quickly identify if I have somebody still using the old service in a specific month, who is that, which shipments were made, so that I can take action. Really coming back to this iterative approach of visibility and control. You can see here what's happening, and then I can use Unifaun TMS to control and make sure that's the right thing going forward. A lot of things that people usually want to do in terms of transport management is related to status and status data. You might want to have measured KPIs. You might want to notify your customers of things happening, or notifying your own operations. Maybe it's an inbound flow to production. And maybe even more, you want to identify things that have not happened, so these non-events. But in order for all of these things to work, you first of all need to have a really good data quality when it comes to status. And this is something that is not so easy to achieve, because it's dependent on a lot of different parties. Different carriers that you use all have to report status to you, and they in turn are dependent on their own drivers, but many times also subcontracted drivers. So in practice, even if in theory you should get status on all your shipments, that's far from always the case. So we made this sheet here to help our customers to drive data quality in close cooperation and collaboration with the carriers. The intention is not to sort of put the carriers in a bad position, but rather providing a tool that can support a constructive dialogue with the carriers about data quality and status. So if I exemplify, see if I can find, I think I will choose this carrier here, other carrier. And then I would change the view to year month, and I would change this one to delivered. I always take the wrong one. This one. One of the things you can do quite nicely here is to quickly click around and identify things with the data. That should be this one. Yeah, so now I'm where I want to be. Okay, so now I selected other carrier. I selected to see a graph showing on the number of consignments made each month. And I also should show the bars here. They are showing how many of these consignments actually have a delivered status. You can see in March 2018, there were almost 3,000 consignments made. And out of those, 1.7 or 1,700 consignments had delivered status. So in that month, it was 60% delivered. So let's say I'm not really happy with that. I want to drive improvement. And going back even earlier, so it was even worse, down to 18%. So what I can do then is that, let's say I'm right now in the spring of 2018, I'm looking at maybe the last 3 months. And I can take all the consignments that does not have delivered status, 3,580. You can see which carrier. I could see, for example, to which countries. And maybe it's interesting to analyze and see if there's a pattern. Maybe some countries are better than others. So here you can see the consignments. Here you can see the delivered. And you can see, oh, sorry, now I have only the delivered ones. But if I take that filter away, I can see, for example, to Finland, there's a lot of consignments, but most of them do get delivered, but some don't. But let's say I want to actually have all these shipments that are not delivered. Take the filter again, 0, meaning no delivered status. And then again, I can take out the list, send to my carrier or to my sales rep and say, these are the shipments that I'm expecting to get a delivery status on. Can you investigate on your side why I don't get any status? Because I think also it's important to keep in mind that for your sales rep to be able to work internally with your request, that person also needs to have quite specific and concrete feedback. If they go to operations and say that my customer is unhappy with the status quality, operations will just ask them, well, okay, where, which status, which shipments? And if the sales guy doesn't know, it's much harder to drive improvement. Here you can be very specific. And we know it works because we have customers that have tried this in a very structured way, giving feedback basically weekly to all the carriers, showing them where they are in terms of status quality, what's their percentage, and then also actually benchmarking them to all the others, saying that you're at 85%, and the best ones are at 99. So what are you doing to improve your performance?
Yeah, we have a current customer right now that first day of using analytics, they had a view in their head that they wanted to build KPIs for delivery precision, and first thing they noticed was that several of the carriers actually had below 10% of reporting delivery status. They were quite shocked, but it only took less than a month and they got, well, almost all of them up above 50%. And that was only possible because they could provide their sales representative on the carrier side with a detailed list of what shipments hasn't been receiving status.
We could also mention that there is a lot of tools available in the Unifaun TMS that will help your carriers to provide you with status. So of course, how using status via EDI is the most efficient way, but it also dependent on the carrier having a process on their side and tools on their side to capture status and to forward them. And if there are parts of the production maybe that is not covered by their own scanning solution and so on, we can also help with something we call mobile status, which is basically a QR code that you can put in a document, and then the driver can scan directly with any phone without any pre-onboarding. You can also use self-service portal for the carrier, called the carrier control tower, where the carrier can manually register statuses on sort of odd flows where they don't get it automatically.
Yeah.
So there's really no reason why carrier should not be able to give you 100%. The tools are available. It's just a matter of sort of continuously driving this improvement.
Yeah.
Okay. Talking about carriers. So the next sheet is really focused on the carrier relationship, showing data with the carrier split. So if I go to this one that we call Express Parcel, even take maybe only these ones. I have subset of data. I have a number of shipments month by month. I can also select just show the shipments that have a euro. And also I can look at the spend. This is my, see here a lot of different options. For example, the total price. I can see how much I spend every month with this carrier. You can see also some KPIs like price per consignment. Interesting to follow. Price per kilo is maybe even more interesting. Says something about maybe the mix you're shipping or price you're paying. It's also here possible to move these things around. I can take it by country. I can expand this table here to show all the KPIs in tabular format. So I can see all the things you can see also in the graph at once. Of course, also export this to Excel if I would like. So this is tool that can be used sort of together with the carrier. When you sit down and you have your meeting, you're not depending on the sales rep to bring you the statistics. You have it already, and you can start a discussion with some pre-knowledge from your side. One scenario here is that maybe you want to make a new tender to get new quotes for the volumes. Let's say I want to have a good baseline. I select 12 months, so now I have 12 months of data selected. Maybe there are certain countries that I want to look at specifically. So let's say I take France, I take Germany, let's say I take the Netherlands as well. So I make a selection of 3 countries. These are the ones I want to tender. Now I have selected 11,000 consignments. Go to the detail sheet again, and I can export, and I have a baseline ready for to send out basically to all potential carriers. And I don't think we can stress the importance of having data on consignment level available when you do tendering. I don't think we can stress that enough. Many times when you ask for statistics from your carriers, you will get aggregated data. You will see a relationship or lane, you will see the total volume and the total weight and so on, the total number of shipments. But that only allows you to calculate the average shipment size and the average weight per lane, per consignment. But if you want to do a good tender, and if you want to really compare actual quotes from each carrier, you need to price a detailed baseline. I mean, let's say that you have a lane where the average weight is 2.5 tons. If you then compare the prices for 2.5 tons, it's not very useful if it's actually in relative, so that you either ship full loads like 25 tons or small shipments, let's say 200 kilos, because either of those shipments will actually be priced in your simulation of the quotes and the comparison. And also for the carrier, it's tricky because they prepare to produce a part load service for you, but actually what you need is either groupage or full loads.
Yeah, and also the pivot table in the carrier sheet, it allows you to, you can, for instance, for a country, you could try to make your tender a bit more advanced. Maybe you want to try see if you have a tender that is defined instead of a country relation. Maybe you want to create it for city. Then you can create the tender baseline by drilling down. So it's a really powerful tool to create baselines.
Okay, I think it's probably enough said about the enterprise app. This is typically the starting point for many of our customers. And as Pelle said before, it's possible to build custom apps based on the enterprise app, adding new sheets, maybe adding, for example, KPIs. I mean, according to your definitions, if you want to measure on-time delivery, how do you measure it? How do you define it? On a daily level, weekly level, is early delivery okay or not, and so on. We have seen it's really hard to make a generic OTD definition, but it's definitely possible and relatively easy to make a custom sheet according to your definitions. And one other obvious thing for on-time delivery to work is that you also have to have a target date. That's something you can actually register or send when you make the consignment, or you could also have that in your tariffs. So when you make the booking, you will have a target date set according to the lead time in your tariff. But now I will show you a different app. We call this Invoice. And I mentioned before that the apps are built around different data sets. This is something that is based on invoice data, not consignment data, which means that we are importing invoice specifications from your carriers, and we are showing you that data, combining the data from the invoice specification with the data we already have in consignments. So we can show you all your invoice data, all your lines on your invoice, and in the cases where we have a matching consignment, we can also show you data and information from the consignment, including the expected cost.
Yeah.
So here you can see it's 389 invoices, 80,000 with more invoice lines covered. 98.1 of those have been matched to consignments. And if I select just one carrier or service provider here, ABC Freight, it's 11 million SEK in this case that has been invoiced to you. This app is a bit more operational maybe than the one that I showed you before. So this is designed for a use case where you have a person responsible for reviewing and approving invoices. The person will receive the invoice from the carrier. Let's say this one here. It has 700 lines. 690 of those are matching consignments that are booked in Unifaun TMS. Probably the first question to ask is, okay, what about the rest? You can easily find those. These are 10 consignments that are not found in our system. So you probably want, just to make sure, you want to probably go back to the invoice and say, okay, is this even our shipments? Which very well might be the case. Maybe you have a process of booking on the side, or maybe it's just somebody not being compliant with your process, which then you can identify. After this initial check, what you want to do, because I mean, the trick here, anybody that ever have received an invoice with 700 lines knows that it's quite hard to say if it's correct or not. It's typically, you have a specification in PDF format or on paper, and it's a lot of pages, consignment by consignment, and you don't know. I mean, you have to rely on the data from the carrier. And I mean, the invoicing process of a carrier is highly automated. So they just use the data they have in their system and they send the invoice. It's basically up to you to identify any issues. There's nobody on the carrier side that will analyze your invoices for you and try to identify issues before they send it. But here you can see, we can compare the invoice price to the calculated price. So the C here is data coming from the consignment, and the I is data coming from the invoice. So if I select a specific consignment, I can see, first of all, the invoice line level data, weight, charged weight, distance, the price. So in this case, the base freight is 134 SEK, total freight is 251. It's been invoiced. I can see the details of the invoice, the price components. There is an advice fee, 95 SEK. There's a fuel surcharge, 22, and it's the freight, 134. Then I can go down and I can compare that to my own calculations, so the calculations that we made based on your tariffs. So when you made the booking, it was 32 kilos. We have calculated the transport cost should be 84. And that there should be also a fuel surcharge, but it should only be 12.77. So the total the total calculated cost here is 96.7 or 96.77, and the invoice price I have up here is 251. So the difference is quite big. Next step now is, of course, for the person responsible to then investigate, is this actually wrong from the carrier? Should I even pay advice fee? Or do I think it's something wrong, something a mistake made on my side in terms of the data I put in when I was booking the consignment? So it's not, I mean, it's not a full automatic system, it's a decision support system, but you can identify all the patterns and you can quickly see and analyze and see what is not sort of matching the expected price. Here's another consignment that has is odd. You can see it has actually two different charge items, change of assignment and not collected. But it doesn't not have the freight. So if I remove the invoice here, I can see something interesting. So this is actually a consignment that has happened, or it has been invoiced 2 times, 2 different invoices. First, you have the fuel surcharge. So this is, see if I take this invoice, probably. This one is showing you the fuel surcharge, the freight, and there's a delivery issue, 100 SEK. But it's pretty much matching the expected price, less for the delivery issue. So if you take around, if you remove this 100, then it's according to the price. The problem here is not the basic freight cost, is all these additional costs. So first of all, the delivery issue, and then if I go to the other invoice, additional cost of change of assignment and not collected. So they have, you can see there are a lot of charges piling up related to some sort of issue in the delivery process. It's also possible here to follow the data flow with credits. So if I select a credit invoice here, then I take one of the invoices on that credit and I remove the invoice filter, and then I can see how this chart has moved. So first of all, I got the first invoice coming on the 4th. It was 268, and somebody probably complained. There was a credit invoice minus 268, and there was a new invoice issued 98. Now when I can see all these three things in order, then it should be okay to pay. But now I know my issue has been clarified. Okay, two ways of working with this data. As in the other app, there's also detail view available that you can export if you want to have all your invoice information for some reason clearly specified and is accessible. Maybe more interesting, you can also analyze the charge items. For example, we looked at the advice fee before. So how many advice fees am I paying for? How much am I paying for advice? Maybe I could find a better solution for this particular need. This is 136 SEK just for advising. And here you can see all the other charge items in this example. So this is the invoice app. As I said before, this is based on invoice data. So obviously also for this app to work, you need to import the invoice data. And that's typically the starting point of setting up this app and starting to use it. First of all, you have to start an invoice data import flow. And then when that is set, then you will be able to use this app. So I will go to the last one. We call it delivery. This is something that's still in a beta phase. It's focusing not only on the consignments, but on the specific statuses. So you can see it's 177 consignments, but 800,000 events. So each consignment has many statuses. And if you really want to follow delivery in detail, you probably want to see not only the consignment data, but also each specific event. I think this app is still, as I said, in a beta phase. We have some customers trying it out. But what's more important here is that this is something that we also plan to release for our Unifaun Online customers. So during the fall here, we plan to start launching delivery apps for customers using online as well. We're building the same data structure we need so that it can work for all our customers. But just to quickly give you a hint of how this works. So you can see the shipments, the events as said. We added a view here that shows if it's a delivery or return shipment, because many times, especially in e-commerce, customers might print the return label on all the consignments and send them to the customer, so the customer can use the return label if they want to return the goods. So you can see that delivery shipments, we have 93% delivery status received, but for return shipments, it's only 11, which is maybe a good thing because it probably means that a lot of the return labels were never used, which I guess is probably what everybody wants to avoid the returns. Not very profitable. Clicking here, you can see the same sort of status quality view as in the other apps. So also here you're able to identify and analyze status quality by carrier, which I think is of course equally important, or maybe even more important than a delivery flow. Maybe also in general, the status quality is a bit better when it comes to parcel services, but I mean, you're not always using maybe parcel services, and also parcel services might have issues with delivery status. So it's good to understand what's happening. I will show you another view here that we call the latest status. So let's say, for example, this shows you the latest status that a specific consignment have, or rather consignment sorted by their latest status. Let's say I select only the ones that are not delivered yet, and then I can see where they are, and I can see there's a lot of pre-transport labels here, but that's because of all the returns. So I take only the delivery ones. So these are outgoing shipments. Most of them are in transit, quite recent, but for example, you can see which ones are the moment at the pickup location, which weeks they were created, and so on. So you can drill down and understand what's happening in your flow. Get away, and I go to the next sheet, and here you can actually see the lead time. as well. You can see the lead time by destination country, or if you would select only Sweden, maybe it would be more interesting to see it by postcode or by city or something else. So you can see the order to delivery lead time, number of shipments delivered, the number of shipments total, and also number of packages. And here you see the same data as graphs, so a histogram, and also the average and total volume by destination. And I mean, lead time is the first thing to measure, but then you can also start measuring delivery performance. But again, as we talked about, for that to work, you also need to have a very distinct definition of on time, and you need to have some sort of reference point or target date to measure against. Going to the last view here, this is the detailed view. So as I said before, we have really data here on consignment levels. So if I go on status levels, I take one specific consignment, you can see the data really, all the different statuses that has received from the carrier, even the ones called set, whatever that means. So you can drill down and you can select another consignment, you will see the statuses that one has received. So you can see that you can export all your statuses. So if you want to measure something very specifically or make some sort of ad hoc analysis, you could take out basically this. It would be all the 900,000 status events in this app. And you can find specific events as well. So for example, if I take the one we call feedback received, this is feedback coming from our consumer app, Mina Paket in Sweden. So you can see the rating that the different customers gave the delivery, including the comment as well. So if you're a retailer and you're really promoting the Mina Paket app, then you can get also quite a good feedback here, which might be a very good way to benchmark your carriers. It's really not only measuring something like on-time delivery, but really now you will be able to measure what the customer thinks about delivery. You can compare by carrier or by geography, for example, or over time, maybe even more important. Okay, so this is what I was planning to show you in terms of the app. Going back to analytics, going back to the presentation, just to summarize. Analytics is really driven by data, and we think that I mean the value of data is really one important part of the whole digitalization agenda and why companies want to digitalize their processes. But in order for data to be valuable and useful, it has to have a quality. It has to be of high quality, and that's one of the key things here with Unifaun TMS, that because of the data being put into the system for operational needs, it has to have quality from the start. It's not just somebody reporting, it's actually somebody entering data to make booking, to get correct label. So the capturing part is handled very efficiently. Even it's even already there is a value because booking using Unifaun TMS is easier than booking in other ways. You capture the data in a good way. Then you can use the data to improve your operations, as we showed you, with the visibility and control, and you will start to get benefits from your data. For example, lower transport cost, improve operational efficiency, reduce inventory, and even finding opportunities to redesign and optimize your whole supply chain. But ultimately, what you really want to do is to make transport management a competitive advantage, to be better than your competition in terms of handling transportation and delivery, so that you can actually grow your business using transport. That I think should be the ultimate target for your, for all of your digitalization. You want to do it to win, but specifically also for in the transportation area. Okay, so hopefully this was helpful or useful for you. If you want to learn more, we have another couple of webinars planned. So what will this be about, Pelle?
Well, Carrier Select is a good segue into something that can be used operationally to improve. One of the areas that you will find when you use analytics is that the tenders aren't implemented fast enough, or that your organizations aren't using transport services in a cost-efficient way. So Carrier Select is a very efficient and powerful tool to take control when you identify these areas of improvement. So Carrier Select is about helping you and helping everyone within the supply chain to select the correct transport service. And then you have a collaborative TMS, basically a TMS presentation. It will be about, we'll go more into depth about why you should have a collaborative TMS.
And showing a lot of new things, I would say, in terms of how we can support different parties handling and managing transports in an efficient way.
Yeah. Like you saw in the map that I talked about, there are a lot of different nodes, and in each node you have different roles, and some are they have different operational process tasks, and we're putting a lot of effort into the TMS system now to provide a graphical user interface that can help to both visualize what each individual in that process want to see, but also give actions, actual functions that is optimized for each person within the supply chain. This will go into depth about that.
So if you go to the address at the bottom, unifaun.com/TMS webinars, you will be able to sign up also for these. Great, so we have reached the end. I'm trying to see if we have any questions. I cannot see any, so hopefully we have been crystal clear.
As usual.
But if you do think about the question afterwards, please don't hesitate to contact us, sales@unifaun.com, or any current contact you might have within Unifaun. We will try to answer your questions. So thank you for listening, and we wish you a nice day.
Yeah, bye.